Hi, Mugdha. Good morning, and thank you so much for jumping onto I'm Possible and Smart. On that note, Mugdha, why don't you tell all of us a little about yourself in your own words?
Hey, thank you so much, Manisha, for doing this. And obviously, it takes the message, a larger message across about how life changes for people when somebody dear to them is diagnosed either with a disorder or a disease, and how then your life starts to exist before that eventuality and after that eventuality, because most of us are connected with our kids. How our children become our biggest teachers, and how a lot of unlearning sort of happens when you become a mother, and especially mother to a differently abled child. So we typically then speak about our journey as before Madhav and after Madhav. So before Madhav, I was a broadcast journalist, somebody who started my career with the advent of news industry in the country. So we are the first generation news presenters and news reporters for India. 2000 was when 24 hours news channels came into India, and that was the time we were the fresh graduates out of journalism who went straight to TV. So there was a huge advantage of being at the right place at the right time. We got brilliantly mentored, trained. This was the time for 15 years where I absolutely enjoyed news as it was and not how it is now. So 2000 to 2013 was a great stint. I learned a lot about television, about news, how to be a good journalist. And there was a lot of fame and recognition that came with it. And so it was a beautiful sort of a life which was very, very successful. I couldn't have complained at all. I come from a very supportive family. So they were always around, and they were very proud of me. As a young person who started working at 19, it was a fabulous stint. I met my husband around that time. He's a sports journalist. And together we made the picture perfect frame. So that was before Madhav. And I think when Madhav came, a lot of joy. It was a beautiful time because he came to our lives planned after 6 years. So we were ready for him. Madhav comes here. He's going to be hanging around. So don't mind him. After Madhav came in, life was even more beautiful because we were blessed with this beautiful little thing, and we were ready for him, and there was a lot of love. And I had no complaints about the early motherhood pangs that people go through because I was thoroughly enjoying him. At about 4.5, a lot of things started to change. Even though we didn't notice a lot of difference in Madhav, except for his late speech, because every other child around him had started to sort of talk by then fluently. And Madhav was very quiet, not very quiet, but he was a child on his own. So we thought, it's all right. He's a quarter child. It takes a while to talk because there were no other red flags, as we call it, in autism. And it was, I think, at 4.5 that, we got our first sort of diagnosis. He was going to an inclusive school, and they put it under sensory processing disorder, which is a right practice that uh, the experienced counselors suss out whether a parent is ready to hear what they're going to be told. And it's only then do they sort of ease you into a diagnosis. And I think that has been one of my gentle asks to all the professors, counselors, doctors, that you have to suss out if the parent is ready to hear what you're going to tell them, and how should your strategy be. When we got the diagnosis, we obviously, you are devastated. Right. We got the diagnosis of SPD, and then we got the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, which with experience you only say that either you are or you're not autistic. It cannot be you are half autistic, you're fully autistic, you are moderately, mildly autistic. You are autistic. That's your identity. So it was around that time that we went through a massive jolt. And it was as a lot of parents would describe it, it's like crashing of a dream, because you think that you're going to raise a child in a certain way. You dream of the typical, normal, and
Absolutely.
all of those words that are now out of our dictionary. Around this time, news industry was also going through a massive change. We, as a family, were also going through a lot of churning from the point of view that, my husband was getting another opportunity in Bangalore. And I was done with news because churning had started to happen where, you wanted news anchors to be aggressive, loud, take sides, and, so the entire news canvas was changing. And somehow I wasn't able to see myself doing that. And so, it was, I guess, the stars aligned from every place for us to sort of feel that, all right, this is what we wanted to do. So we moved to Bangalore with a fresh diagnosis, with me having quit my job of 15 years, industry, and my husband starting afresh and in a new city, which was going to be life changing. So I think that was a marquee year in our lives, 2014.
Also because it is the Autism Awareness Month, and I think everybody listening to us need to understand how this disorder pans out. My daughter, for example, has a rare disorder which is very difficult to diagnose. How is it with autism? Is it equally difficult to diagnose where the child is on the spectrum?
Super easy to diagnose, I think, if one is aware and if one is ready to accept. Because a lot of times, you, as a parent, you will definitely know that there is something that is not regular with my child. And that is something I absolutely believe in, that a parent knows their child well. And they will know when a disorder sort of manifests. For example, not responding to his name, or being lost in his own world, or not talking to people and not making eye contact. These are micro traits that start to manifest as young as 1.5. I always tell parents, young parents especially, that you need to go to a developmental pediatrician and not just a pediatrician. That's a different battle altogether. That the pediatric studies in our country talk about neuro disorders in children only in super specialization of neurology. So if you are a basic pediatrician, chances are you will never sort of explore these disabilities in academia. You will learn about them पर ऊपर से, लेकिन आप कभी भी आपको ये पढ़ाया ही नहीं जाता है. So it is very important for parents to go for regular checkups when the child is getting jabs. That's typically when you go to the doctor. Speak to the doctor that, is everything all right? Are developmental milestones being met? Because a lot of times that is your first sort of place where you get help. And it can be diagnosed as early as 1.5. And then there are people who are getting diagnosed at 60. Also in schools, etc., the teachers will notice.
Right.
They may not know how to identify a specific disorder, but a teacher will also know that this child is different than the rest of my children. The manifestation of traits can easily be spotted. It's just that parents go in denial. हमने भी लेट बोलना शुरू किया था. लड़का है तो लेट बोलेगा, लड़कियां जल्दी बोलती हैं. Or let's give it another year. Maybe when he goes to school, it will be different. Maybe when he has friends, it will be different. In a lot of cases, it will be like, let's have another child. Maybe then they will bond well. I think Bangalore, from a lot of ways, is a much better city when it comes to intervention. I think it also is a city that gives you the slowness to absorb everything. People of bigger cities are constructed a different way, I feel. And Bangalore was a city that gave me a lot of tehrav. It gave me a lot of semblance to figure out, what is happening in my life. And I think if I would have been in Delhi, where I had all the support, massive support, my in-laws were there, my parents were there, friends were there, it would have been easy for me to sort of fall fall for support, and perhaps not have explored autism in its full intensity. We didn't even have a full time somebody helping us full
Right.
time. And so, I was with my son 24/7, 365, and I was seeing him develop. I always say this to parents that, the first few years, you have to invest in yourself and in your child, and just understanding what the diagnosis may mean. And that's the reason why I always say that before you go for a therapy for your child, first start family therapy for yourself if you can afford it. Because it's very important to sort of understand where life is taking you. And if you can't afford therapy, because therapy is expensive in India, join support circles, join WhatsApp groups, and there are plenty. Join WhatsApp groups where senior parents are around. And that community is very strong. If you are going to write on the group, hey, I'm a new parent, I can't afford therapy, and I'm trying to find ways of navigating through this, can somebody help? 50 people will volunteer to help. And I think in my case, the fact that I was all by myself, and it was just me and my husband and 2, 3 of my very close friends who were in Bangalore, my entire world was of them and understanding Madhav. And I think those 4 years gave me a lot of insight into the disorder. I think I was able to strike a very, very deep relationship with my child. I understood him and he trusted me, because that is one of the main things that happens in autism. You have major trust issues. And also, I think around that time only, I was completely convinced that my son is going to, with special needs schools, they are going to give him more attention. They're going to understand him more.
Completely understand. But Mukta, you have over the years, while you were, dealing with your own personal situation, bringing up Madhav, you have done amazing amount of work. Why don't you tell us a little about all of that?
Journalism as a profession um, teaches you a lot, and why people are required, and why some people are given that power, or given that blessing to reach out to more people. I always describe myself a journalist without a purpose before Madhav happened. I was looking at journalism more as a profession. And that was the only thing I had learned to do in life. I used to write, I used to present on television, my thoughts, articulating my thoughts, and speaking, using a larger medium to reach out to people. I mean, those were the things that I had learned to do since I was 18, 19 years old. So I had not learned to do anything else. And so when I found myself without a job, and that was a huge, and as a caregiver, I often speak about that as well, where I had a huge identity crisis, because, all our lives, our identity is related with our work. And especially for all modern working women, we don't look at, even though we are house proud, we will beautifully decorate our homes, we will try to be the best version of motherhood for our children. But at the end of the day, when somebody asks you, like, and this was a question that I used to feel very awkward about in my years in Bangalore, when somebody would ask me, what do you do? And, I would be like, what do I do? I don't do anything. I'm just a mother, and I'm just running a house, and I don't do anything else. And, and that would be like, I never ask anybody, what do you do? Because that question was haunting for me. At that point in time, I was like, शायद हो सकता है कि मैं कभी काम नहीं कर पाऊँ. And that was also a churning of a very different kind, because, you've worked all your life, you've made your own money, now you're depending on your husband or family or, whatever. And it's a very uncomfortable situation for a woman caregiver. So it took me time to adjust to that new reality as well. I have learned to explore life beyond just my work. I felt this strong need to vent out. And I felt very strong need to tell people what's happening in my life, because, I wanted people to know, why am I suddenly off the radar? Why am I not working? Why not? So, initially it was triggered from that thought.
Mukta, was there any feeling of vengeance? No anxiousness that why did life pick on
Why
you
has this
this
happened to
way?
me? Not at all.
Hmm.
That's the other thing, that you go through that grief cycle, and every parent
Hmm.
in special needs or grief knows about that cycle. You have betrayal, you have
Yeah.
anger, you have vengeance, you have all of. But anger sort of didn't come to me. It's interesting you asked me that, because with Madhav, nothing changed. He was still
Hmm.
my child. And unlike a disease,
Hmm.
where the poor kid would have had to go through a hospital, get jabbed, you're seeing the child in pain,
Right.
you're going through a much larger trauma.
Hmm.
Here, my child A was safe. There was
Hmm.
no threat to his life.
Hmm.
He was just different.
Hmm.
Also because this was my first child. I hadn't known parenting any other way, and so I struggled to find my own identity,
Got it.
not his. I think my need to reach out to the rest of the world came for a variety of reasons. One, I wanted the world to know what I was going through, and why suddenly I was off the radar. Secondly, I was trying to look for a collective humanity, perhaps, where I could find more people with the same predicament as mine, living the same life as us. And the third was, I think, the fact that I was missing being a journalist. I was missing talking to the world, writing. These three things, when they came together, and one of the things that led to the first round of writing was venting. Because a lot of times you feel that if you write and take it out, it's also for the first time you are acknowledging some of those feelings. Thing that I just wrote on the first day, I got some 7,000-8,000 people to respond.
Where did you write these notes, Mukta?
I think it is still available on the net. It's called Raising a Nonconformist. It's
Ah.
on WordPress.
Hmm.
And that's how I started. That was also the announcement, that, hey, we are happy, we are good, we are absolutely fine. This is the diagnosis. We are now raising a differently able child. We don't need sympathy. And we are now on a different journey. And I think that was the first time it was just established that I have now come out of the closet also. And life really becomes easy once you are completely out with your truth. If you are trying to hide the diagnosis, if you want it's a lot of pressure on the child, it's a lot of pressure on the family. You don't step out, you don't
And
want to be
for
seen with
what?
the child.
And for what? Yeah.
But unfortunately, Monisha, I still feel there are so many parents. I'm 80% of parents in India they still haven't come to terms with it. We are a minuscule 20 or 10% parents who are like, all right, okay, my child has a disorder. That doesn't define everything about his life. And it's a different life, and we are going to make the most of it. But I'm also speaking from a place of privilege, and I think privilege is a very important word in my dictionary of special needs. So I understand why it is easier for me to be a certain way and not for somebody else who perhaps had a child with a lot of dreams, that child will basically be instrumental in changing the fate of the family. And then I use the word saddled, which is rather sad, but people feel saddled with say 2 children who are on the spectrum, and they say that हमने तो सोचा था कि हम इसे पढ़ाएंगे लिखाएंगे और ये instrumental होगा हमारी lives change करने में. A lot of people have those dreams about their children.
Right.
And so I understand where they are coming from. When I talk about privilege, I think privilege also gives you both the anonymity and both the confidence to come out in the open. Anonymity from the point of view कि ठीक है मेरा बच्चा कुछ भी नहीं करेगा, मैं उसको दुनिया से छुपा के रख सकती हूँ, and he'll be taken care of. Coming from privilege, the other is that all right, I just want to enjoy my child. And it's okay if he doesn't. I'm going to give him the best life he deserves. That has been my learning when it has come to why people choose to speak about things and why people choose not to speak about things. And it is very typical for invisible disability.
So your reason, Mukta, was to come out in the open, and one is obviously to accept it in a wholehearted manner, that this is the kind of life it is going to be. This is my child, and I don't care about what
Yeah.
anybody else thinks. Was there any other reason for you to uh, reach out on a medium where you wanted to connect with people? Were the answers you were looking for? Was there some sort of an investigation that lay underneath all the venting? Were you trying to look for solutions?
Initially, it was just venting.
Hmm.
Initially, it was just that. But I think what started to happen later was that, people started to read and they started to correlate, and they started to ask questions. So, for instance, if I went for speech therapy and I wrote about it, somebody from a very small गांव would write to me कि मेरे बच्चे को ये है तकलीफ, आप मुझे बताइए मैं क्या करूं, क्योंकि मेरे यहाँ पे स्पीच थेरेपिस्ट नहीं है. That's when it hit me that it is not a rich person's ailment alone. A lot of times, how doctors will tell you about oh, it's an urban disease. Oh, it's an urban disorder, right? कि आप बड़े शहरों में रहते हैं, आप you're exposed to much more stress होता है, ये होता है. But autism, as we are now finding out, is 1 in 50, and it's everywhere. And that's also the time social media was exploding.
Right.
Instagram came into Instagram, Facebook, everything was, and video blogging sort of started to happen. And I've always been a broadcast journalist. I've always been in front of the camera.
Right.
And Hindi was my language. And so I felt that, all right, there are a lot of people who just wanted to understand what is happening. Because suddenly, when I came out with my story, there were a lot of parents, there were a lot of friends who started sending their friends to me, saying that, okay, we've just found out that we have a friend and they might need help. Suddenly, I felt as if, there were people looking up at me, for answers, for help. That's when a lot of senior parents started to get in touch with me, seeing my story, etc. And they said that, okay, life's going to be better. Ye nikal jayega time, Then the need from just venting became about finding support from similar community. So you can tell a person, oh, Madhav had a meltdown. So they'll be like, oh, acha, is he all right? Are things okay? And you tell that to a special needs parents who knows what a meltdown is, and they will immediately feel in their body what it means for a parent to feel what must have happened. Their empathy is of a different kind. And so I was looking for that community that understood me. So it was about community. It was about reaching and helping out people who weren't as privileged as me and had these questions and were writing to me. And I didn't choose this for myself because, those questions were coming and I felt a need to answer.
If I may add, and this is because I've noticed the space, right? Maybe from a different perspective, but very few parents talk about awareness. How many people out there, parents of children with autism, are actually being the voice of that child? You are being one. If you ask me, I haven't found another Mukta who is out there talking about various facets of this disorder, being present in a child the way that you do. And this is a very, very parently approach, right? Not a medical sounding narrative, not a vlog where you talk only about medical terminologies. वो तो बहुत सारा मिल जाता है. But how many people are talking or trying to be the voice or being an advocate of that concern, of that particular disorder, of that, and raising awareness? Because everybody is busy trying to keep it, within the four walls of the house, worried about the social stigma. Now, this is my basic understanding. One of the things that drew my attention towards you was, here is a lady who has had a full-fledged career, and now, on the other hand, there is a parallel path that she's chosen where she is advocating voraciously about autism.
I think I was brutally honest. I was brutally honest in not painting a rosy picture. I wanted people to know the good, bad, and the ugly. I'm surrounded by very strong moms who speak about autism in their children. But two things happen. either they will talk only about the awareness that कि autism ये होता है, लेकिन मुझे अपने बच्चे के बारे में नहीं बात करनी है, ठीक है? A lot of people say कि ये उसकी privacy है and he deserves the privacy. So there is a lot of people who say that we don't want to compromise on the privacy of the child. But I always say that if he has to be a self-advocate, and he will need to be a self-advocate, he will need to open up about what is happening in his life and what his traumas are living in India with this. तो वही वाली बात है ना कि अगर आपको कोई फर्क ही नहीं पड़ रहा है और ना ही दूसरे को फर्क पड़ रहा है, तो आपको भी किसी को घर घर आपको दरवाजे खटखटा के बताने की जरूरत नहीं है कि भाई मुझे ऑटिज्म है, क्योंकि मेरे को तो सब एक्सेप्ट करते हैं, पीपल विल लुक एट मी एंड विल बी लाइक अच्छा ठीक है तो है, पर तुमको यू आर लाइक एनीबॉडी एल्स, राइट? It's not the case. My child will have to be a self-advocate all his life.
No, I agree with you on that. Absolutely. And
I'll be very happy if tomorrow he comes and tells me, because then I know that, okay, my child has the agency to think about it. So, I can understand in those cases where the invisible disabilities are of not that magnitude and the child with therapy can get easily assimilated with the rest, And that is fine, because your struggle is your own. You don't need to tell the rest of the world about something if you don't want to. It's almost like the LGBTQ community. You can't force somebody to come out.
Absolutely.
By saying कि अच्छा ठीक है हम आपको support देंगे, but you have to come out. You just have to create the world which is accepting of them. But it's a different case altogether. In our community, there is no world that has been created to accept children like mine. So you need to be self-advocates, and that is the reason why when I speak about my experience, I am absolutely honest with it. I show my face, I show my child's face, कि अगर मुझे उसके ही साथ advocacy करनी है, यही तो मेरी life है. Why do I need to hide it? A lot of people choose their children's privacy. They also choose their own privacy कि हम अपनी community के लोगों से बात कर लेंगे, लेकिन we don't want the rest of the world to.
I get what you're saying, Mugdha. Completely get it, because I come from the same same space, and I keep telling. So I am this cross-border person, right? I never live in a silo of a rare disease affected parent, and I have been reaching out to people having children with all kinds of disorders, diseases, etc. Because somewhere I believe at the end of the day, Mugdha, that the society needs to broaden their mindset, right, at the end of it. And somewhere we all need to acknowledge, as much as we are craving for inclusion, right, out there, even amongst us, there needs to be a degree of inclusion where I'm able to, I'm able to absorb what you're saying and you're able to absorb what I'm saying, right? And this is purely lacking in the affected community as well. And somewhere I feel that whatever be the medical condition, right? Whatever be the medical condition of the child who is born in this country, the system of education, the system of healthcare insurance, the system of accessibility, so these are basic drawbacks that are affecting everyone. You're saying it in a different way because that the lack of it is affecting or will be affecting mother's future. I'm talking about it in the same breath because I know all of this is going to and ultimately after us, we keep wondering who after us for all our children, right? But if it is these individuals themselves who will have to be advocating for their own needs, it should not just die with our voice and with our actions. So sprouting from here, Mugdha, when we're talking about the lack of resources available, these are the basic rights, right, as an individual of a country. What is it that you find lacking the most for your son, given the background that he has? What do you feel is lacking for him? Do you feel that it's a system of education which is not rising to meet his needs? Is it the healthcare or the insurance requirements that are not rising up to meet the needs of children with autism? What are the lacks that you have figured out so far?
The number one is just the bare acknowledgement of the fact that autism exists. And the fact that it is an epidemic. And that there are more and more kids who are getting diagnosed with autism, because neurodiversity is such a huge umbrella, right? And on one side is severe autism, and on the other side is perhaps someone like an Elon Musk, or like a Steve Jobs. So, you have the full spectrum of manifestation of traits, and all the traits are very different. So, you have non-verbal people, you have semi-verbal people, you have verbal people, you have people who can't stop talking. So, a lot of times it so happens that the mental agencies are very different from this side of the spectrum to that side of the spectrum. Because of this, the definition of neurodiversity has gotten very mixed up. And the understanding of neurodiversity has also gotten very mixed up. So what is happening is that the ones who are on this side, who are very happily talking about neurodiversity as just a different way of being, I do my life differently, and that is all right, and I'm going to celebrate that. Yeah. Their neurodiversity is very different from my neurodiversity. My neurodiversity comes with challenges. My neurodiversity comes with physical challenges as well, right? And there, at the end of the spectrum, with severity, that neurodiversity comes with medical challenges. Now, what is happening is that the world over, suddenly there is a movement. We are going to celebrate neurodiversity. We are going to embrace neurodiversity. We are going to say to the world, to hoots, कि हम तो ऐसे हैं and we love being like this. So what does the सरकार do? जैसे कि तुम तो साला सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हो, तो तुम्हें हेल्प की क्यों जरूरत है?
Absolutely.
You are you are embracing neurodiversity. It's just a difference of brain functioning. You will do and learn things differently. So, ठीक है, neurodiversity, ठीक है, celebrate करो. उसमें क्या हो रहा है? जिन लोगों को मदद की जरूरत है, वो पिस रहे हैं. कि आपको सरकार को लग रहा है कि यार फिर आपकी न्यूरोडाइवर्सिटी से तो पहले बहुत सारी चीजें हैं हमारे यहाँ फिक्स करने के लिए, हम पहले उसको फिक्स करेंगे, हम पहले फिजिकल डिसेबिलिटी को फिक्स करेंगे, उसके बाद we will come to invisible disability or the disability that you are talking about, right? So there is a data deficit in the country. Absolutely. People have no idea how many autistics are there in the country. When there is a data deficit, you are saying, the teachers I'm meeting, the counselors I'm meeting, the professionals I'm meeting, they are saying we come across at least 2 to 3, 4 cases on an average every other day. Where are these cases coming from? And if these cases are coming from, which that means that the number of people with invisible disability in the country is much higher than what the data which was collected some 20 years ago is telling you. So there is no sense. So when there is no census, there is no data. When there is no data, there is no urgency to make policies for these people. Stemming from that comes the curriculum crisis. NIOS is not meant for my child. My child has a different agency. He needs to learn independent skills. He needs to learn functional academics. And NIOS Pratham exams, that are the only exams of certification left for my child in this country, are teaching him hardcore science. My child doesn't need to know how the native man lived and how he used stones to make fire. He needs to learn that कि आग से जल सकते हैं और उससे दूर कैसे रहना है.
Life skills,
more functional. So number one, there is a huge curriculum crisis. Now, because of that curriculum crisis, you are pushing your children to doing only vocational things when they could be capable of doing other stuff. मतलब आप वही सोचते हैं ना कि अच्छा डाउन सिंड्रोम है तो अच्छा ठीक है, फिर तो ये बेकरी में काम करेगा, ये तो बहुत अच्छा शेफ ही बनेगा. Stereotypical ideas then start to come. कि अच्छा इसको तो ये है तो ये वाले बच्चे तो यही करते. But what is to be understood is that a curriculum crisis की वजह से पेरेंट्स जो हैं वो बच्चों को स्पेशल नीड्स स्कूल्स में भेज रहे हैं क्योंकि मेन स्ट्रीम स्कूल्स में वो अवेलेबिलिटी नहीं है. और चूंकि आपके पास में you don't have the numbers,
you're not being able to put things together.
The government is saying that all right, okay, is there a Kendriya Vidyalaya for special needs? No. Is there a government initiative which says that we as a government are running schools for special needs children? No. There is a disability bill in which in 2016 they introduced autism. उससे पहले 2016 से पहले तो autism was not even recognized as a disability.
Absolutely.
But there are 21 disabilities before autism. We are in Maharashtra. Maharashtra में तो जो disability dictats हैं वो उन्होंने apply ही नहीं किया है. Maharashtra is one of the states where they haven't put this framework into place any which ways. In absence of recognition and acknowledgement and the data deficit, even if you go to a corporate, Monisha, and you will say have a disability quota, वो किसको पिक करेंगे? वो सबसे कम डिसेबिलिटी वाले को पिक करेंगे, वो फिजिकल डिसेबिलिटी वाले को पिक करेंगे,
विजिबल, यस, दैट्स व्हाट आई वाज गोइंग टू से,
पिक करेंगे. तो हमारा बच्चा जो है वो तो जो उसका रिजर्वेशन अभी अगर है उसमें भी वो नहीं आएगा ना. Because under disability quota, you are also fighting with so many other disabilities.
Absolutely. So glad to hear this from you, Mugdha, which is, you know, what I keep barking about with people, that even in the world of people with disabilities, that there is a range, there is a humongous crowd here, right? And some sense everybody's in the same bracket, everybody. So for us, for to the government, we are all people with disabilities, and our needs are not understood purely because the differences in our disabilities are not understood. You know, there is no mechanism of understanding that itself. And उसके बाद आता है awareness, उसके बाद आता है policy creation, उसके बाद आता है implementation, उसके बाद आता है everything else, right? Sustainability, etc., etc., etc. So it is, I think, you know, one of the, I think, basic asks from anybody that anybody like you or me would have is that, you know, listen to the voices. There are many of us and there are many differences amongst us, right? So is there some method by which we can be cataloged, you know, people with disabilities, can we be cataloged? Can there be some data against, you know, prevailing you know, minorities here? Because otherwise even the tribal minorities are getting the dues. Even they get the dues in our country, right? Whereas we don't have anything. I think this is the first time that I heard about political will for people with disabilities from Urban Ali, right? Otherwise, nobody was talking. And they were that, and it's purely because of lack of unified voice.
So acknowledgement, understanding that not every disability is alike, data deficit for policy making and for helping, curriculum crisis, and then of course this whole red tape around disability certification. That is another level of
I swear,
I would say torture. We were told, oh, you are lucky. And what is lucky? 4 months going to Nair Hospital, which is an extremely populated government hospital of Bombay, and 14 sittings to get the disability certification. Now, you think disability certification आ गया है, बच्चा एग्जाम दे पाएगा. अब बीच में किसी ने बोल दिया भाई UDID जरूरी है. UDID doesn't give you, UDID gives you an identity. But UDID में ये नहीं लिखा होगा कि आपको आपके बच्चे को रीडर राइटर चाहिए, आपके बच्चे को ग्रेस मार्क्स मिलेंगे, आपका बच्चा कैलकुलेटर इस्तेमाल कर सकता है. So that only a disability certification is doing. So a lot of parents are now going to UDID and getting a basic certification which says that, you know, the child is disabled. But when he goes to give exams, they are like, but you know, your disability certificate does not mention that you need a reader or a writer.
Somewhere in the midst of this whole chaos, Mugdha, nothing is happening. That's what is evident, right? When nothing concrete is happening. But ultimately, when it comes to the work that is being done, it is by a handful lot of, you know, individuals in their spaces who are today either taking to entrepreneurship or to, you know, some sort of advocacy to bring about awareness, etc. And this is my next question, Mugdha. What is your focus? And I know that I'm not going to ask you this question, do you feel inclusion is required in the society? The answer is a blatant yes. But for you, what is your area of focus? And I'm sure there is something that you have been thinking about, you've been working, you know, with all these years. So what has been your specific area of focus or areas of focus?
You know, one of the things I have learned raising a child with autism is that if you yourself accept autism and the diagnosis, you can actually help your child in many ways without seeking the support of anyone. You make yourself strong, basically, and you start to recognize what your child is going to be good at, and you're going to support your child in doing and finding out his way. And so now it has come down to how can I make more parents self-reliant. I know I can't change the system, and it'll take a lot of time to change the system. So while I continue raising my voice by putting videos about what is bothering me or what needs to change in the system, and so I am trying to make a caregiver self-reliant. We are saying that आप special needs schools में भेजो, therapy घर पे आप कैसे कर सकते हो. So my only aim is that when a diagnosis happens, to support a parent, find a life that they can afford for themselves and their child, and given their circumstances, what best can they do for their family. Whatever we are doing, whatever, maybe we'll see the results of it in 10-15 years. But for now, what do? हम 10-15 साल का इंतजार थोड़ी करेंगे. तुमको प्रैक्टिकल जो मैं गाइडेंस दे सकती हूँ, मैं वो कर सकती हूँ. So I'm like, even if I'm able to help one family, I'm fine with it.
Definitely, there's a solution that one has to work with, inside the house, and then there are solutions outside the house, right? Outside the house, while the cloud clears up, this is the best thing that one can do. One of the, I think, best ways, Mugdha, I can end this amazing chat with you that I'm having. I know this topic is so deep that we can go on and on, but at least you're not sitting there and waiting for those 10-15 years, right? What is your ask from those listening to you? What do you think you would want listeners to kind of do for you or do for this cause, if I may put it this way, before we end this podcast?
The only thing I want people to realize is that there are people different than you, and they exist around you, and please don't go with an affinity bias. Embrace more people, because you're going to meet more people who will be different than you. And I think when you make room for all the differences together, you will be able to navigate through life with empathy and kindness. Because if we embrace the differences and we are aware of all the differences and everything that comes with diseases and disorders and how they change people's lives, if we are aware of it, we will be better co-workers, we will be better teachers, we will be better parents, we will be better family, friends, we'll be better society. So awareness is at the heart of it. Absolutely. And acceptance and embracing is what is required, and it's not a difficult task.
And I think it'll also wipe out all this, the backlog of stigma that we, culturally carry, Mugdha, in our society. And I think somewhere, while we are progressing on multiple fronts as a country, there are these areas where we are very, very behind. And I wish even the policymakers, people in the government are listening to parents like us talk, because we need to be heard only for the pure reason that we want the country to be better, not just better for our children, but better as a society, be more inclusive, create an environment where everybody constitutionally enjoys their rights. This is a democratic country at the end of it. I think some good sense prevail can only happen with awareness, like you said. If you're aware, if you know what the problem is, can you find solutions? So Mugdha, I had a brilliant I think more than an hour chat with you, and I can't be feeling more blessed for these conversations, because I think sometimes when anybody asks what am I getting out of it, and I'm saying that I'm just threading conversations together, so and you'll realize that there are so many of us, it's not just a few of us, right? So thank you so much for adding to the voice, Mugdha, and hope to have many more conversations like this with you in days to come.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and more strength and power to you and Kea.